Welcome to Thriving Tribesmen. My name is Kuri, your host, and I'm excited to be making this episode. So when it comes to changing a sexless relationship, there is no way you're going to talk yourself out of a sexless relationship. What got you into a sexless relationship is behavior. So the behavior has caused some sexual discomfort, and therefore when you try and initiate, for example, it causes that discomfort, and then all of a sudden you back off or she rejects you. And in order to change things, most people will tell you that you need to sit her down and then you need to talk about it. And a lot of you guys have, and it has always backfired. And it doesn't matter how many times you've talked about it, it actually has caused more chaos when you talk about it than actually get to a place where you are successful. And sometimes it's potential that you do talk about it, you do find some common ground, and then all of a sudden you do agree to actually do something, and then it falls apart. So again, you feel a sense of momentum by talking about it, but then there is no real effect around it. So it comes back down to, when it comes to changing a sexless relationship, it's all about changing the behavior and then getting the behavior that increases the sexual comfort, and then all of a sudden you can then increase the frequency. So there is this progression of how you're going to do it. Most people have got, a lot of therapists and sort of psychologists, if you go online and you ask how do I change a sexless relationship, the first thing they tell you is to sit them down and tell them your feelings. Now, there's a few things about that for me didn't sit well, because if you think of it from a leadership frame, it takes you to this point where you're basically saying that, okay, this situation is making me feel horrible, and I'm telling you this, giving you responsibility to changing it. So you are the one that's going to change it. And usually if somebody is got sexual discomfort, they do not have an idea of how to change things, because again, you're not forcing them to have to go internally to go and have a look. The reason why they're in the sexless relationship, they cannot see past the sexual discomfort, and therefore it becomes an untenable situation. Now, that's one side of things. So people will then go for a few years of this back and forth, this conversation, where sometimes it goes completely horrible. Sometimes you actually do have a good conversation, or at least in inverted commas, a good conversation, but again, it never gets anywhere. And I came across some literature, and I thought this was quite interesting, that it's called Auditory, just one second, it's called Stress-Induced Auditory Dysfunction. What that means is that over a period of time, as you are having conversations, for example, and the other person is going into a place where they're going into a stressful state, or at least feeling a level of anxiety, what tends to happen is that it can start creating a dysfunction. So almost they start tuning you out. So which means that if you are having a conversation around a sexless relationship and it induces anxiety, it induces stress, or induces a negative emotion around the conversation, generally the person will start getting into a place where they want it to be done as quick as possible. Now, generally they might start by trying to shame you or blame you, or they can take that a place where they're passive and they just become completely agreeable, just so you can feel the sentence that you've said something, and then by you saying it, they agree, and then they just choose not to change in terms of the behavior. So again, you've seen this where your wife says, I just realized that, something is wrong. Yeah, we're not having sex. I'll do better. And then again, you find yourself in the same place. Nothing really changes. What tends to happen is that they are so adverse to the stressful situation that they're going to try and get out of that stressful situation as quick as possible. What then does not happen is that they don't take the actual information and then want to act on the information. They're just worried about escaping the conversation as quick as possible. And you've got to realize that the conversation that you're having literally is you raising the standards of the relationship, that in order for you to operate in this relationship, I want you to raise the standards of investment. So in this case, sexual investment. So I want you to raise the standards. And because you're having this conversation, you're forcing them out of a comfort zone that they've built for themselves. So again, they've got this sexual discomfort, so they put themselves in a comfortable situation where they don't have to experience this sexual discomfort. So you, by saying, let's have more sex, you're pretty much trying to move them out of that comfortable place. So generally what tends to happen is that over a period of time, because there's these negative associations around this conversation, they tend to be almost fight or flight. So it's either I'm going to really derail the conversation and stop the conversation from happening, or I'm going to go into a place where I just become completely agreeable. And again, this will nullify any other momentum that you have in order to changing the sexless relationship, which is wild when you think about it, that all these conversations that you're having, this person has now got a dysfunction around that conversation. So basically, they've tuned you out. So your complaints, your concerns, and so on. And again, it comes back to that things that we'll talk about on another episode, the prioritization of the relationship. Then the discomfort makes them so adverse to conversation that they start prioritizing other things. So again, within the relationship, she loves you, she wants to be with you, she wants to prioritize you, she wants to come out of this funk as well. But because the way we go about with these conversations, instead of changing behavior, it becomes almost impossible to change the relationship. Now, I'm not saying you do not have conversations around it. We can train you on how to have the conversation in a way that's collaborative. So there's certain things that I will tell you in terms of the structure of the conversation, how you have the conversation in a way that's going to not get derailed, and also get you to the point where she wants to act in a way that that's going to help the relationship grow in terms of from a sexual standpoint. So again, when it comes to changing a sexless relationship, it comes down solely to changing behavior. When you change the behavior, the person is going to respond to the way you're behaving. A lot of it, again, comes down to stuff that we're talking about, which is dominance, being able to operate within a leadership frame, being able to communicate effectively. Again, by communicating effectively, I mean communicating effectively from a body language standpoint, in terms of you being in a neutral state. Again, all of those things become the element of changing, or at least the things that she wants to see in order to build comfort around interacting with you from a sexual standpoint. So again, this is a very, very important lesson, because a lot of you guys have been talking about, or talking to your wives, or trying to convince your wives to improve the relationship from a sexual standpoint. But because you're talking about it, she's tuned you out. The interactions have caused a dysfunction around you talking about your relationship in a way that's going to change things. So again, it's one of those situations where I think I want you to think about the conversations that you've had, see how ineffective that's been, and try something else. It's incredible how many times. Within you having a conversation about changing a sexless relationship, it's bad. Just as bad up there is you trying to reinitiate again sex. So she's got sexual discomfort. You've talked about it. It's not gone well when you talked about it, but yet you still try and initiate sex again. All of that has to come offline for a season so you can regroup, and then all of a sudden, when you do have a collaborative conversation, it actually starts building up to the point where you start building comfort, because you're essentially asking her to leave the comfort of not dealing with that sexual discomfort. And there's going to be a combination of your behaviors and then a way of speaking in a way that's collaborative. Now, I know it's dichotomous what I'm talking about, that don't talk about it, but you should talk about it. What I mean is that there is a specific way of how you're going to talk about it. And when you talk about it, you have to have certain behaviors while you're talking about it. Like I said, neutral state, having a leadership frame, and then also being able to show the dominant traits as well within those interactions. When you can do that effectively, all of a sudden the conversation changes to the point where she is actually chasing you. So again, in order to learn more about this, go to Thriving_Tribesmen on Instagram, and we'll be able to give you some more details on how you can get a free, get a free seduction blueprint. So that you told me about your situation, tell me about the conversations that you've had, tell me about how your situation came about, and we'll just learn a little bit more about your wife and your partner. And then once we get an idea of what's going on, I'll give you a step-by-step guide for the next 2 weeks, what you need to be doing, what you need to say. And within that blueprint, will give you opportunities for us to connect in terms of conversations to see how everything that you're doing is working. And again, if we need to adjust a few things, we'll adjust a few things. And all of a sudden, within those 2 week period, it's important for us that you get a result. So when we ask you to join our community, you know that it's something that is good for you. So it's the Netflix type thing that we're trying to give you guys. So more of a try the thing before you buy, because again, a lot of you guys have been burnt when it comes to coaching, where you've spent thousands and thousands of dollars and not got anything back. But all of a sudden, when we come to us, again, inexpensive, but at the same time, you get the opportunity to test it out before you buy, which is absolutely incredible, because a lot of guys within our community are getting a lot of wins around some of the stuff that we'll be teaching. And again, like I said, I would have known that your wife has tuned you out and whatever you're doing is ineffective because you're so hell-bent on trying to talk about it instead of actually exhibiting behaviors that's going to get her to chase you. So thank you very much. See you guys soon. Take care.